Welcome to the Light of Sirio podcast. My name is Dori Fari and I will speak with a realized spiritual master about his views on life and the topic of spirituality.
Hazur Maharaj Sant Ji, you're my Sadgurus, I bow down to you. Hazur Maharaj Sant Ji, you're my Sadgurus, I love you. Hazur Maharaj Sant Ji, you're my Sadgurus, I adore you.
Now we arrived to the 5th episode of season 3 of this our podcast, and today we have an extraordinary episode, a special episode, because today is not Master Sirio to be here with me, but there is initiator of Master Kirpal called Norman Sharp, who already had been with us in the first season, the last episode of the first season, when we were talking about Master Kirpal's Bandara of his Mahasamadhi, and where we have some videos made with Norman, which were made years ago, in which we could know his personal spiritual story. But Norman, you have a very long spiritual history, and I know you met Master Kirpal in '63, and you were initiated by him in 1964. And then when we had this conversation about his Mahasamadhi, I remember very much a term, an expression which you used, that after Master Kirpal's leaving this world, leaving his body, was created in the Sangha like a great vacuum after such a great personality going out, and people try to find their ways in this vacuum, in this absence of the Master. And since we could hear from Master Sirio, how was it for him, I thought it would be very interesting to listen to you also. How did you find your way, and how eventually you found Sant Ajaib Singh? How did you hear about him? So what happened to you after Master Kirpal left his body?
Well, yes, correct. It's important to remember that when a saint leaves the body and you've been initiated by that great one, Kirpal, then the vacuum is great and the grief is great and the emptiness is great. And yet, although we have something to fill ourselves, the remembrance of God and the practices of Nam and the practice of dying while living, which is the legacy of the saint. So, yet there's still a vacuum to fill for the human mind anyway. And so you listen to the mystical teachings that are bandied around and thinking, is there anyone to replace, as there usually is in the scriptures? There's a line, a lineage, a guidance towards the next if we need or feel the hungriness of communicating with the great persona of a living master. So I was fortunate to hear that there was such a man to fill the shoes of great Kirpal, and his name was and is Ajaib. And it was a wonderful sound to hear that there was a living master in the world. Remember the love that's grafted into the world with a living master, the purity of his living and life. And so to come across, through a friend of mine, I heard of Sant Ajaib and other masters, but Ajaib was the one that pulled. And so I booked a passage to Rajasthan in India, where this new master was situated.
And in which year did it happen, Norman, that you heard about Sant Ajaib Singh?
The year, well, I can't put a finger on the time schedule because it was so far back in time, really. But certainly it was most momentous to me to be able to go to Rajasthan.
Yeah.
And
well, actually, I forgot to mention to those who listen to this our podcast that Norman, he's 97 years old. He's heading to 98, and you just made this trip from England to come to Italy to the Sambani ashram. So I apologize to ask such details like years, because you have so many things to remember too. And so I'm very thankful that you share all these things with us. And but so that when you heard about Sant Ji, did you decide together with other satsangis to go to see him right away in India?
yes, that's true. And it was the 70s when I first heard about Ajaib and the beautiful simplicity of this saint. And so I made arrangements with some local people to go out to India, and it was a very interesting commencement of a new journey.
Was it the first time for you to go to India?
Yes, it was the first time, because I hadn't seen Kirpal in India because he passed away. He left the body, that is correct expression. So it was the first time to go, and I shared the journey and went to Rajasthan, which was a very difficult journey because Ajaib lived in a very remote part of the desert. So far, it was unbelievable. You'd think there's no one living here that can possibly exist. And yet, the journey seemed endless, you know, and in the back of beyond, it was not humanly possible to find him. But there, if you look for the jewel, you look for the pearl, nature reveals, and God revealed that he was there in this little shrine, if you might say, in Rajasthan.
Yes, it's interesting. Hidden in the desert.
Yes, really well and truly a loner, and spending his time living and breathing the God practice of Kirpal. And of course he inherited that mantle, but not in a very flamboyant way, a very quiet, a very innocent, a very beautiful, sublime, divine way. He exuded quietude. You felt that atmosphere of love and devotion and quiet and union and communion with God. It was just special. And that's my first impression was the special nature of a God-man. My first realization that he could fill the shoes of my master. Not in an absolute sense, but in the nearest possible way. He was the lineage successor. And so I had days there spent under his tutelage, under his purification process of isolation and restraint and diet and loving one another, because we all had this beautiful resignation of, here is a God-man, you know, this is lovely, this is beautiful, this is intoxicating, you know, God is love. And we were like that with one another. It was special. And he had an underground room, did Sant Ajaib, where he had attained fruition himself, and again under the tutelage of Kirpal, who brought him out of a very deathly samadhi. And so the underground room where Sant Ajaib did his meditation was special. And it was so special, he would not allow us to go down unless we'd done the whole meditation for the whole interval of time that we were there. Then we could go down one at a time. So we didn't contaminate his place of worship. And that was special.
Yes, it sounds really very special.
Oh, very, very special.
Yeah, also I imagine this, what a magic to be there, do this intense program with him in the desert of Rajasthan, and then be granted with the opportunity to see this, his shrine, within his shrine, the underground room where he used to meditate.
It's right.
It's a holy privilege.
Very privileged. And of course, communication was a little bit difficult because, as you will remember, Sant Ajaib didn't speak English. He only spoke his native language by preference. Mm-hmm. And so that's how the way it worked. And of course, when we went to the underground room, and individually went to stand before him and then go down into the underground room, because it was downwards, it's like a cellar. Mm-hmm. And I was there, and I was so taken by the mesmerizing influence of Ajaib that I couldn't move. I couldn't go down. But then, in English, Sant Ji said, go down. So I went down and partook some of the spiritual bounty of the vibration of the underground room. Beautiful. There was another occasion when I had a meeting with Master, and when I went to see the time of the interview, and I went in and sat before him, he said, memorably, he said, Kirpal remembers you.
Very strong.
How beautiful.
Yes.
There is succession shouting.
Overtaking. Yeah, I feel almost how strong affirmation it is.
Yes. How beautiful thought. How beautifully revealed.
Yes.
What more could I look for or listen for? I was shocked, amazed, beautified, and it was a privilege, wonderful privilege.
Sounds like magic almost.
Yes.
Well, you said something very interesting, which I never thought of this aspect of Rajasthan. I have been there in Rajasthan in his second ashram, not in the first. But even if we took the long trip and everything, I never thought of this aspect of participating in a program with him in practice in the middle of the desert. That you went there from the west, taking an extremely long trip, going in the desert, arrive to the middle of nowhere, enter there in that ashram and stay there and be in his presence, where there is literally there is nothing else but the ashram and his holy presence. There is really, you can't do anything else but turn towards him, turn towards God, and give yourself to this spiritual practice and dedicate yourself to this divine love, and like a purification process, really like a complete retreat from the world, not just like a meditation retreat. It's a complete retreat, remote retreat from the world. And I never thought of this aspect of it, that there was nothing to take away the attention.
Thank you for putting it so well, so succinctly, so beautifully. But it was a divine place in the desert, and enhanced by the spiritual master, and as I said, the jewel in the crown. And when we came out to get on the bus, the whole village was there, and the whole village came for the darshan of the initiates coming out of the Satsang, because they believed that the master was so perfect. He gave us that something that they wanted to see, a simple villagers. And that was part of the sort of culture of the moment. And then he would get on the bus and walk down the aisles of the bus to give darshan to each one of us before we left. And so we had those wonderful divine moments in the desert, exacerbated by its remoteness and beautified by its remoteness, and nothing else between us and God, nothing there. And his concern was with each one of us, like all the masters are, in their own way. But that was a joy. And that stayed with me, of course. And part of the mission was accomplished there, of transference of power, as far as I was concerned.
Well, it's amazing how you give such fantastic information about your masters that one could never grasp from any books and from any videos. Because I remember also when we talked about Master Kirpal, and you used the term, his dancing eyes. And then I could understand what kind of atmosphere was there around him, how he gave darshan, like emerging like a holy madness around him. And there is something which I never understood, or never, never picked this concept about Ajaib, that he was radiating love. Like the other day we were just talking among ourselves, and we mentioned the part like the ocean of love. And yeah, as you described, then Sant Ajaib was the ocean of love, like the sun that is radiating love. It's very beautiful. It's very precious as you describe it, and I feel like you're bringing me into that presence of his. I can feel it through you, how magic moments you could live with him, and it's fantastic, really, very uplifting. And then when you had this first meeting with him, so it seems it was very powerful for you. And then how did you continue with the path? How was it going on with Sant Ji? Did you go back other times also to India?
Yeah, the path from then on was assured as far as I was concerned with Ajaib, and of course there was a connection now with Master Ajaib through Sirio, because Sirio had this ashram and he built it and conceived its present unison with his and his teachings and his mission. And of course I came here on the mission of Ajaib, but was it
in '89?
Yes.
Am I right? Yeah.
Yes, that for the first time, and that again was very, very revealing, in as much as it was a different experience to have such a communal life, and but yeah, it was very, very rewarding. And they were helping to build the ashram at the time, and so there was a certain amount of seva and connection, and we're all jostling for little scraps of seva which we could perform for the master.
Well, I remember seeing you in the documentary video which was made in '89 here in the ashram, that you were the one to open the door of the car for Sant Ji.
Yeah.
And you were standing beside the car and you opened the door for him, and then from very near he gave you darshan, and then when he got into the car you closed the door for him. So you had a very privileged special seva to be so near to the master.
Yes, that's true. He did allow that. That actually happened because of, I won't go into the details of that, but I wasn't doing the seva, but I was hopeful of doing it. And so I was not allowed to do it because of my feeling of hurtfulness, because I wasn't doing it. It became possible. And so the master only allowed that to happen. So while he was here, outside this building, getting out of the car, he only allowed my seva through his grace. And interestingly also, Master had his house, his bungalow, built by Sirio, which stands today as a shrine and as a beautiful, useful shrine for initiation of newcomers. And we used to help Ajaib to get out of the car. It was a bit like a Land Rover, so it needed steps. So I always wanted to bow before a master. I mean, an innocent enough thought, but I felt so honoured. But I thought, remember the royalty of old used to be welcomed by people bowing. But I thought, the master's not going to permit that, of course. But what happened was, I put the steps there for the master to stand down to get into his bungalow. And as I put the steps down, the two steps, or one step, and it was on very sandy soil. Mm-hmm. And so the master got to the door to look out at the steps, and you could see by his expression that he thought that's going to tip over. So I immediately went down on one knee and held the steps. I bowed. Mm-hmm. And so Sant Ji got out without tipping over, but I got my wish. That's to bow before the master. So therefore, master's playful with us.
Yes, interesting.
It allows certain things.
Yes, yes.
So that's my remembrance. And also, I remember the singing here, which was choral singing, everyone joining in and singing away. And the master by that time had given up singing. It was affecting his bronchial side, and so Sirio took over, was singing. Not officially a master at that time, but when he sang, his voice was exactly like Ajaib's. Ajaib had a beautiful voice, and I thought it was the master himself singing, but it was Sirio. His voice was the duplicate. Beautiful. So that was interesting.
Actually, I just got a letter from an Indian man who doesn't live in India. He lives in another country, and he reached out to Master with a letter. And we had now the Bandara of Master Kirpal on the 6th of February, and this Indian man whose mother language is Punjabi, he listened to this satsang, and he listened to this bhajan singing session, and he wrote to Master Sirio that he sings perfectly in Punjabi, that he could understand every word, because usually Westerners don't sing very good in Punjabi. We don't have a good pronunciation, maybe. But this Indian man, I was surprised that, wow, how Master Sirio sings so well in Punjabi. Like, this man brought like it was your mother language.
Yeah. Very interesting, yes.
And did you go back also other times to India, to the ashram of Sant Ji?
Yes, I did have another trip there, and I was about to go, but of course the time was coming to the end of the mission of Ajaib, and sadly that was an event of great magnitude, and it was noticeable at the time that Ajaib was going to go on a world tour. And so this was a great surprise that he would decide to leave the body. And like masters do, they do give some indication somewhere. And in song, Master had already written about him leaving the body.
Yes, that's true. There is this special song which he wrote, they say, 4 days before he died.
Yes, that's right. And in the words, he sang, I have to go. Really, I have to go. Send me. Happily send me. I have to go to my sweet home. And so here he was telling us, the Satsang population, that he was leaving the body and having to go. And he said, send me, please. In other words, let me go. I want to go to my sweet home.
Well, actually, Master Sirio said that also probably it has been like this, that there was supposed to be this world tour because people were busy with that all around the world, and then very few satsangis were going therefore to India. And Master Sirio says because Sant Ji, he was like a hermit, very remote, and he liked to be alone, and he didn't want people to be around him. He wanted to be alone. He wanted to go alone.
Did he?
So that's how it happened, because Master Sirio said that in all his life then he tried to isolate himself and go in the desert and be remote, and that's how he wanted to conclude this mission of this lifetime. Yes,
well, of course. I mean, the romantic thing, if you like, if it's romantic, is that when Kirpal left the body, Ajaib was so affected, he went into the jungle and he went to the jungle and meditated there. And no one knew where it was. He was wandering, but he cried that much that he damaged his eyes, and he had to do protective measures later on to protect his eyes and from the sun and things like that. But that was his loss, his master, and grieving so much, crying, and floods of tears, and his remembrance of the master. And really this should affect us. Let us remember a master is so important to remember him and what they do for us, and while they are here in the same vibration, that we should also have that amount of grief if we lost our master, because that's paramount, and it was paramount to Ajaib.
Listening to you, I can't help but think that I hope my time of grief is far away. It's tough that you enjoy a spiritually long life as well, and full of blessings and beautiful experiences, and you had to witness the going of two your beloved spiritual masters, Kirpal and Ajaib.
Well, life is interesting for us all, really, but in perspective of the masters, it's really, really interesting because of the love aspect of the masters, what they give us, and what they are. They are pure, pure, pure love. And that's why, irrespective of us, we are sinners. They protect us from all these ravages of time and ravages of karma, and yet they will guide us back to God and wash us in the process with Nam, with the meditation, with the purity of remembrance of their masters, and by example, their life.
Yes, I was just thinking about this word, setting a great example.
Yes. And the bedrock example, of course, are the ashrams, because they don't want you in the world, really, because the world is a distraction. But if we can come to the masters' ashram, the bedrock of spirituality, the bedrock of love, and the bedrock of purity, the bedrock of moulding by inference and by teachings and by singing. We are children of God, and all the masters have said this. This is a special area the masters are working. So we have to remember this special area. We are on the one ticket the Master's given us. And it may be in this life or the next life or the next life, but it's there, the ticket is there too. The path is there. And the path is where? To the higher realms, to Satlo. And so life is a preparation. And if we can join hand in hand together in remembrance of these great masters who've suffered in the process of becoming true lovers. So let us, in some kind way, remember we all have difficulties. And sometimes hand in hand, they're not as bad. And hand in hand with the teachings of the Master is going to bring us all singing to Satlok.
Yes, it sounds very beautiful. I'm just smiling because you mentioned the ticket, and I thought hopefully it's a one-way ticket, no return, that we go to Satlok with a one-way ticket. So we go out of the cycle of 84 by the grace of the Master. So thank you very much, dear Norman, to share all these your experiences and memories with me and with all of us who listen to this podcast episode. I feel very privileged to have this conversation with you. I feel a very strong spiritual upliftment just by talking to you, listen to you. It's as we said, that Ajaib radiated the love of Kirpal and radiated the love of God, the divine love. And when I look into your eyes, into your face, I look at you and I listen to your words, just like Kirpal and Ajaib shine through your words, through your eyes, this kind of love, because it's a very important thing that you came on the path. You met Kirpal in 63, which was a long time ago. And still, here you are. And even at your age, you take the trouble to take a trip, to go to meet the living Master. And you keep going on the path no matter what, because with your life, you demonstrate us what it is, the path, and what it is, this divine love and divine intoxication that one can experience in the presence of the living Master. And it's just fantastic that no wonder those villagers in Rajasthan wanted to have the darshan of the satsangis, to see them, because it's the same thing that when I speak to you, when I look into your eyes, I feel like receiving a piece of Kirpal and receiving a piece of Ajaib. It's very, very precious.
So, thank you very much.
And to conclude this episode, do you have a brief message that you could say to anybody who is listening to this podcast, who is either a satsangi or a spiritual seeker? So what's the message of Norman to the people?
Do not despair of a path to God. There is one. There's a supreme one. It's the path of Surat Shabd Yoga, and the teachings thereof by the current master. And it's the only way back to God that has less hindrance and more liberating moments to give you as an act of love, and there is no better way. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Norman. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I also would like to thank to all those who have been here with us, listening to this episode and follow this podcast. And I would like to ask you to please subscribe, follow the podcast, leave a rating, and if you like this episode, leave a comment, and it's much appreciated. If you have any questions or anything to say about the podcast, it's most welcome. Please send your email to the siriopodcast@gmail.com. And next episode, as always, comes after 2 weeks. And to conclude this episode, which was a special one, at least to me, and I hope also to others as well, we close with a special song, which is special in the sense that it was just born now, these days, and let's say like this, that these words were inspired to somebody, to a Satsangi, who is Christopher Sharp, the son of Norman. And he said that one day these words appeared to him and he just wrote them down. They felt very inspired to him, like as if they were not his own words. And so he sent it to Master Sirio, who indeed agreed with it, how much these words feel to be very inspired, so much that he turned it into a song, and he added a melody to it, which is a melody of a bhajan. And since we were talking about Sant Ajaib Singh saying like he himself was like the ocean of love, so let's listen to this song, which is the ocean of love.
La 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 la. I am drifting on the ocean of love. I am drifting on the ocean of love. Let me be drawn in the ocean of love. Let me be drawn in the ocean of love. Be drenched in its essence. Be drenched in its essence. Wash me away. Wash me away, wash me away, wash me away. I am drifting on the ocean of love. I am drifting on the ocean of love. Swell in the waves of love. Swell in the waves of love. The current of love, the power of love, the current of love, the power of love. Wash me away, wash me away, wash me away, wash me away. by the power of the ocean of love. Caught by the power of the ocean of love. At the mercy of the waves, at the mercy of the waves. Wash me away, wash me away, wash me away, wash me away. I am drifting on the ocean of love. I am drifting on the ocean of love. At the mercy of our chosen destiny. At the mercy of our chosen destiny. Pulled into the ocean of love. Pulled into the ocean of love. Wash me away, wash me away, wash me away, wash me away. I am drifting on the ocean of love. I am drifting on the ocean of love. I am drifting on the ocean of love. I am drifting on the ocean of love.